Chains clink in a dark dungeon beneath the royal castle tonight. Kiru hangs bruised yet alert behind tired half-closed eyes. Princess Flare stands close wearing silk like a polished weapon. Her royal grin shines while her cruelty fills the stone air. Leonard guards the hallway with armor bright and posture rigid. Flare taunts Kiru and calls his pain a holy requirement. Kiru breathes slowly and studies every step she takes. He remembers being a village healer before the kingdom arrived. They praised his gift and promised honor and protection forever. Then soldiers seized him and named him the healing hero. Each forced cure flooded his nerves with another person's agony. He learned that healing others meant suffering every wound himself. They kept him drugged so obedience would feel like salvation. Flare often visited to smile and tighten his invisible chains. She spoke softly while ordering guards to break him daily. Kiru swallowed rage because rage without timing means death. Tonight her voice drips poison as she demands another miracle. She says heal the prince or face endless punishment again. Leonard nods as if cruelty is simply disciplined duty. Kiru lowers his head and lets Flare believe he is broken. Inside his mind a different voice stays sharp and patient. He recalls the Philosopher's Stone and the power it awakened. That power let him rewind years and keep every memory intact. 4 years of torment replayed until his will turned to steel. Flare thinks she controls him because he still wears shackles. Kiru knows shackles matter less than knowledge and resolve. He watches Flare's hands and memorizes the keys at her belt. He listens for guard rotations and counts footsteps beyond walls. He tracks Leonard's habits and notices the Knight Trust's orders. Flare leans closer and whispers that heroes must sacrifice always. Kiru almost laughs because she calls theft a noble creed. His eyes briefly glimmer, then he hides the light quickly. Flare misses the change because arrogance blinds the attentive. She turns away and complains about weak people and dirty peasants. Kiru remembers her secret hatred and her hunger for control. He also remembers she hides darkness behind prayers and etiquette. The dungeon reeks of iron and damp straw and old fear. Kiru's wrists ache, yet his thoughts stay painfully clear. Another flashback strikes him with the weight of chained years. Blade once walked past him laughing after battle and victory. Bullet once mocked his cries and called him useful equipment. Kiru healed them both while his own spirit bled unseen. Those memories sharpen tonight like blades against his throat. Flare orders Leonard to bring fresh restraints and more guards. Leonard hesitates because he trusts Flare yet fears scandal. Flare snaps that loyalty means acting without questions or doubt. Leonard bows and moves toward the cell door with keys. Kiru senses the moment opening like a crack in stone. He forces his shoulders to slump and his voice to soften. He tells Leonard he will obey if treated like a hero. Leonard pauses because pride loves flattery and simple bargains. Kiru adds that Flare will praise the knight for obedience. Leonard steps closer and unhooks the door with careless speed. Flare keeps talking and never notices Leonard breaking procedure. Kiru's heart pounds, yet his face stays empty and dull. Leonard reaches inside and loosens one shackle to test compliance. Kiru lets his arm fall limp and whispers humble gratitude. Leonard believes it because he never imagined Kiru fighting back. Flare finally looks over and sees Leonard near the chains. She smirks as if watching a pet learn new tricks. Kiru lowers his gaze and hides the storm behind calm. Leonard unlocks the second shackle and grips Kiru's collar. Kiru sways forward as if weakness controls his balance. Flare orders them upstairs because the prince waits for healing. Kiru nods and repeats her words like a trained servant. Inside he counts 3 breaths and chooses the exact third. On the third breath his healing mana surges with violent precision. He aims not to mend but to overload Leonard from within. Leonard stiffens as pain flashes across his confident expression. The knight tries to shout, but air vanishes from his lungs. Kiru grips the collar chain and pulls Leonard off balance. Flare's eyes widen because the script suddenly changes direction. Leonard collapses hard and his armor clatters across the floor. Kiru steps free and stands taller than he ever dared. Flare backs away and reaches for her magic with shaking hands. Kiru closes the distance before she can finish a spell. He pins her against cold stone and speaks her name slowly. Flare hisses that he is property and should kneel again. Kiru answers that property does not remember 4 stolen years. Leonard groans behind them and tries to rise through dizziness. Kiru kicks the keys away and keeps Flare trapped close. Guards shout from the corridor as confusion spreads like fire. Flare tries to call them, but her voice cracks with fear. Kiru tightens his grip and tells her to stay quiet. He says the dungeon has heard his screams long enough. Flare struggles and swears the kingdom will hunt him forever. Kiru whispers that the kingdom already hunted his life away. He drags Flare toward the chains with steady, ruthless focus. Leonard crawls after them, but his strength keeps fading fast. Kiru snaps a shackle closed around Flare's wrist with force. Flare stares at the iron and finally understands the reversal. Her royal mask slips and raw panic floods her face. Kiru leans in and demands answers about drugs and orders. Flare spits insults, then falters when Kiru does not flinch. Footsteps thunder closer and torches flicker under the doorway. Kiru turns his head and hears the guards arriving now. He grabs the keyring and plans a path through smoke. Leave a comment about Kiru's first strike against Flare. Subscribe if you want the next escape beat by beat. Footsteps thunder closer and torches flicker under the doorway. Kiru grips Flare's wrist chain and pulls her forward. He hears keys jangle and steel scrape against stone outside. The first guard shouts and demands the cell door open. Kiru stays silent and watches their shadows stretch longer. Flare tries to scream, but Kiru covers her mouth firmly. The door swings wide and guards rush inside without caution. They freeze when they see Flare chained beside Kiru. Their commander blinks hard and asks who dared touch royalty. Kiru lifts the keyring and lets it glint once. Flare kicks wildly and shakes her head with furious denial. Kiru whispers that Flare ordered this punishment for years. The guards hesitate because orders collide with visible truth. Leonard groans nearby and drags himself toward the wall. Kiru points at Leonard and calls him Flare's loyal witness. Flare snarls that Kiru lies and must be killed immediately. Kiru tightens her chain and forces her to face them all. He says one wrong move and the princess suffers first. The commander lowers his spear but signals more men behind. Kiru backs toward the corridor while keeping Flare pinned. He uses her as cover and steps over Leonard's fallen helm. Leonard reaches for his sword, but his hand trembles badly. Kiru kicks the blade away and stares Leonard down coldly. He tells Leonard that obedience bought this collapse tonight. Flare spits curses and promises gold to whoever strikes him. No one moves because fear of blame now outweighs loyalty. Kiru turns a corner and drags Flare into a side passage. He slams a door and bolts it with shaking speed. Alarm bells begin to ring and echo through the lower halls. Kiru breathes hard and listens for patrols crossing above. Flare tries to bite him and he shoves her back. He snaps another shackle on her ankle to slow her. Flare glares and asks why he does not simply kill. Kiru answers that death is too quick for her crimes. He demands the drug route and the prince's location now. Flare refuses at first and clings to her royal pride. Kiru presses mana into her nerves and pain forces honesty. She blurts corridors and passwords and names of loyal guards. Kiru repeats each detail to lock it into memory. He forces Flare deeper until a storage room appears. Crates line the walls and stale cloth hangs from hooks. Kiru throws Flare onto a pile of sacks without ceremony. He binds her hands tighter and gags her with torn fabric. Outside the door boots race past and voices shout orders. Kiru checks a small mirror shard and sees torchlight sweeping. He waits until silence returns and then unbolts the door. He moves through servant corridors where shadows hide his steps. Flare stumbles behind him and hatred burns in her eyes. Kiru keeps her close and avoids the main stairways. He reaches a vacant chamber used for discarded supplies. Here he finally faces Flare and speaks with calm rage. He says her smile ruined lives and built a rotten legend. Flare tries to mock him, but her voice cracks mid-sentence. Kiru raises his hand and begins forbidden healing manipulation. He explains that healing can rewrite flesh and rewrite memory. Flare struggles and then freezes as mana threads wrap her mind. Her pupils shake and her breathing turns shallow and uneven. Kiru asks her name and she answers with frightened pride. He rejects it and repeats a new name again and again. He tells her she is Freya and she serves without question. Flare's defiance flickers while her thoughts fracture under force. Kiru commands her to forget the dungeon and forget royalty. He pushes deeper until her resistance collapses into blank silence. Freya blinks slowly and looks at Kiru like a rescuer. Kiru tests her by ordering her to stand and follow. She obeys instantly and nods with empty devotion and calm. He removes the gag and Freya thanks him in soft voice. Kiru feels no comfort because this is strategy, not mercy. If you are watching, then comment whether this turn shocked you. Like the video if the stakes suddenly feel much higher. Subscribe if you want the escape plan to keep escalating. Kiru changes her clothing using plain linens from the crates. He tears away royal jewelry and hides it under loose boards. He smears dust across her face to dull any recognition. Freya accepts every change as if it is simple routine. Kiru hears new alarms above and knows time is collapsing. He needs a scapegoat and Leonard fits the role perfectly. Kiru returns to the dungeon route using hidden servant tunnels. He spots Leonard dragged upright by guards with furious questions. Leonard sees Kiru and reaches out with desperate confusion. Kiru knocks him down and plants Flare's seal on him. He scatters broken chains to suggest Leonard freed the princess. He spills lamp oil near the cell and lights it fast. Smoke rises and forces the guards to retreat and cough. Kiru pulls Freya away and seals a second door behind. The fire spreads into stored powder and threatens a loud blast. Guards shout that Leonard betrayed the crown and killed Flare. Leonard screams denial, but the smoke steals his words away. Kiru races through the outer corridor as heat builds rapidly. Freya keeps pace and never questions why the castle burns. A shockwave hits and stone dust rains from the ceiling. Kiru ducks and shields Freya while flames roar behind them. They reach a drainage gate leading to the moonlit outer wall. Kiru unlocks it and cold air rushes against their faces. Behind them horns blare and the castle shakes with chaos. Kiru slips outside and pulls Freya into the night grass. He does not slow because search parties will flood out soon. Freya looks back once and sees fire painting clouds red. Kiru grips her hand and leads her toward the dark forest. He checks the stolen map and chooses the river path ahead. Freya asks where they are going and Kiru answers forward. Moonlight guides them as distant shouts fade behind the trees. Kiru keeps moving because stopping means chains could return quickly. Freya follows close with quiet steps and trusting blank devotion. Cold wind bites their skin while ash drifts from burning towers. Kiru listens for dogs and riders and the clank of armor. He chooses the river path because water hides tracks best. Freya asks his name again with careful childlike uncertainty. He says Kiru and tells her to remember only that truth. Behind them horns call louder and search torches sweep hillsides. Kiru tightens his grip and urges Freya to run faster. They reach a muddy bank where black water slides past stones. Kiru checks the current and judges the risk in silence. He orders Freya to hold his waist and keep her head up. She obeys at once and steps in without fear or doubt. The water shocks their legs and steals warmth from every muscle. Kiru wades deeper and keeps his eyes on the far reeds. Arrows whistle somewhere behind and splash far short of them. Guards shout that the princess is dead and the traitor fled. Kiru feels relief because the lie buys precious minutes now. He pushes through the strongest flow and reaches the opposite shore. Freya slips once and Kiru catches her before she falls. They crawl into tall grass and lie still as torchlight nears. Boots pound nearby and voices argue about tracks and smoke. Kiru controls his breath and counts until the patrol passes. Freya trembles but stays silent like a trained shadow beside him. After the danger fades, Kiru rises and shakes off river mud. He leads her into thicker woods where branches block the moon. Every snapped twig feels like a signal to hungry pursuers. Kiru slows and checks Freya's face for fear or doubt. She smiles faintly and asks if she did something wrong. He answers no and says she is safe while he stands. Kiru remembers Flare's laughter and the dungeon's endless darkness. His stomach twists, but he forces his mind into cold focus. Revenge is not comfort, yet it is direction and purpose. He thinks of other heroes and their careless, cruel smiles. He swears they will face consequences after he builds strength. Freya watches him like a loyal squire awaiting next command. Kiru gives her simple rules for the road ahead. Stay close, stay quiet, and never speak to strangers first. Freya repeats the rules and nods with eager obedience again. They find a fallen log and rest for one short minute. Kiru searches the stolen bag for bread and a flask. He shares small bites with Freya to keep her steady. Freya thanks him and calls him kind with honest softness. Kiru flinches because kindness once trapped him in false hope. He tells himself this is survival, not a dream of peace. Far away the castle glows like a wound against the sky. Kiru watches the red light and remembers the explosion timing. Leonard will be blamed and hunted and likely silenced quickly. Kiru feels no pity because Leonard chose comfort over truth. Still he notes the lesson that loyalty can become a leash. Freya asks why people scream and why smoke follows them. Kiru answers that bad rulers hurt others to keep power. Freya nods as if learning a basic rule of weather. Kiru stands again and pushes their pace through brambles. Night insects buzz louder and the forest feels tighter now. He hears a horse nearby and pulls Freya behind thick roots. A rider passes with lantern raised and anger in his voice. The man curses Leonard and vows vengeance for the princess. Kiru waits until hooves fade, then slips onward like mist. Freya stares at Kiru and asks if she was princess. Kiru pauses, then says no and keeps his voice steady. He cannot risk her memories waking under stress or rumor. He tells her she is Freya and she travels with him. Freya accepts it and smiles as if given a new home. Kiru feels the weight of that smile like a heavy stone. He knows he created this devotion through ruthless forbidden magic. Yet he also knows Flare created his suffering through choice. Kiru decides the world will not receive clean heroes anymore. It will receive a healer who remembers every wound precisely. They reach a narrow road and follow it toward distant fields. Clouds cover the moon and the darkness becomes deeper still. Kiru uses mana senses to watch for living shapes ahead. He detects none close and allows Freya to relax slightly. Freya walks with straight posture as if serving a lord. Kiru almost laughs at the irony and swallows it down. He thinks of freedom tasting sweet yet sharp like raw medicine. Each step away from the castle feels like stealing breath back. He also knows freedom invites new dangers and harsher choices. In the distance wolves howl and echo across empty farmland. Freya shivers and moves closer without needing any permission. Kiru places a cloak around her shoulders and keeps walking. He tells her dawn will come and they must reach cover. Freya asks if dawn means safety and he answers not always. Still he says dawn means new chances and clearer paths. They crest a hill and see smoke trails spread across valleys. Search parties scatter like ants and lanterns dot the roads. Kiru chooses the forest edge and avoids open ground carefully. He points out stars and uses them to keep direction steady. Freya watches the sky with wonder like a reborn traveler. Kiru feels the night closing, yet his resolve keeps growing. He vows to dismantle the empire that worships false heroism. He will strike each betrayer when timing and power align. Before the next fight, he must gather allies and supplies. For now, he disappears into darkness with Freya at his side. If you are still watching, who deserves justice most right now? Comment Kiru or Freya and tell me why you chose. Like and subscribe if you want the next breakdown soon. The episode ends with their footsteps fading into silent night.